Hello Suprajan. Today we are gonna take a part of alarm radio. We gonna see what the inside, how it does works. There are basically four systems. There are going to evaluate. There is a power system. There is alarm clock or a clock itself, and the structure of a device in the interface. There were also gonna take a look at the radio. The first thing is the let's to look at the power system. I have already cut a part of a plug here. You can see the probe there where a power comes from. We have got two wires here. Two wires connected what they called the transformer. In a transformer there is a three key components. We have got a primary coil, a secondary coil, and a iron core. The primary coil is wound around a certain number of times. The secondary coil is wound around a fewer times. In a particular transformer, there means a step-down transformer. There is a transformer does it in the work converts 120 volt AC down in a 9 volt AC. Because the component in alarm clock need a lower voltage, it sells to the power down. Their way its ways to this coil induce the current flow in a coil, and the iron core helps that happen. Because this coil has been a fewer turns, it is a step down transformer, which means that the voltage is a less coming out of the part. If there were more turns, it would be a step up transformer. The iron core again facilitates this process. It is called the electromagnetic induction. This coil induces the current flow in the coil. Anyway, the power will travel in the cable here, the wires, and it comes in the alarm clock. Let's take a look at a house first of all. It's a fairy look and a cost housing, and it is made up of an injection mold plastic. Let's see where the power comes and where it goes. One of the way there has been able to reduce the cost of this, and this is basically just only used for a fastener. Once a separate fastener is a screw, the more screws often things in the easier way to often tightens in a wire to put the together and take apart. But there is also a more expensive screws in their robot or a person assembly. It is an expensive cost adder. The more screws you will be take out, their more cost has been reduced. All these fasteners are actually molded in a body panels. They are a pin of a table here, so we can pull that top of a part. This part is right here in the front of a few vessels, and it is made up of a titanium a cycle, and it's in an injected mold. There are two parts of a mold. There is a together in the mold plastic and injected, and this comes out. The reason it's in the injection mold that creates a very presses, and you can get a nice clean finishing. When you produce them in a high volume, you can do it forever and title cost. There that is a reason to a titan and the hidden and interior component expected, and when bring a light still shows there. This is inside and the takes a part out. Let's see if you get there. There we go. It's all together apart, and that keeps costly again. There is nothing a lot of separate pieces, and there have a assembly, and there some modules and can be just plugged into the housing. Let's see the look in the housing before and get the power system. The housing was injected and molded, and they are part of a mold. There one of a part comes in here. Here one of a part come in here, and their core and goes here. One of the way they have been able to reduce the cost is by a molding button, and this housing there is a little surrounding a button. and that half surrounding the basically a place where there is no material, so it allows the button to flexible, but there is also a little tubes and hold it in a place. All the buttons were molded in the when you push button and triggers the pin when the trigger switches below. We will get this in the seconds. In the back you will be get a place for a 9-volt battery. So your backup battery is when the power goes out. Just slide so you push the battery in there, and this is a little hole in the place. Battery pushes against these 2 volts right wires, and right here where a low cost connectors of a battery, and there goes to need the extra drawer and housing piece of outside, so again reduce the cost in the way, and mold will came together. The plastic was actually injected right here, and you see there is a piece in the plastic of sticks out, and once of a fell then they broken, and you can there was a piece of a plastic that struck out. Once this falls out and call the sprue and broken that off, and you can see the remains of that. By having a those features module into this, we reduce the cost because of I don't have assembly and the separate button and things like that. Let's take out power again. We will. This is a part of there and where all the buttons, brackets, and the things are. Unplug this all right. You can see the power comes in now right here. If I take that off, we have 4 diodes in a row. There those diodes functions as a bridge rectifier, so these converts the 9-volt AC power that comes in to the DC power. This AC power flows like this and like a sense away in the flowing in both direction. They converts into that in the cut into and they take a sine wave and cut it and flip it over, so it goes like this, and so it's still a little rough. It's a little bumpy. That capacitor helps to smooth the power out because of this component does not want power that fluctuation a lot. Fluctuation means a variable voltage. There want a really smooth consistent in the direct. There would be those do. This has been those capacitors can help out. Let's take here. This is our clock divider integrated circuit chip. What does it takes? A signal from a crystal oscillator, which is in the pace of a quarter crystal that is tuned in a specific frequency when the electricity is put into the quarters. It is an oscillator at a part of a frequency and produce the voltage. It gives you a very piece of a time and hour. Often time can be says 60 hertz and 60 times a second. Then what needs it is a once of you have those division you need able to separate those division and minutes in the horse. The second of a signal from those division minutes and to display those divisions and the goes through the ribbon cable, and then will be 7 segments has been come here, and it calls us 7 segments in display because it has a 7 different segments in each little piece in the right here. They display the minutes and the hours. There is a LED here is a display the AM and the PM. LED stands for a light emitting diode, and it's a very efficient in the low cost way display. The time of LED are mounted inside this plastic views in the right here inside there, and there is a kind of a light conduit and helps to spread light out. In LED is a very intense and sporting the light and spreading out. It makes each segment look completely full, and the LED light is a whole segment here. On the back side, this is a printed circuit board that helps to basically direct the electric signal in the coming here in the 7 segment portions, and may turns out it's a 630, and so you can only a certain segments and light up. Because of that, we have a jumper and which helps you can use the jumpers alerts and the functionality of a 7 segment display. This is a way of a programming or a maybe a setup function in the certain maybe. So this jumper allows you can transfer power into the different part of a display. Then have these little white spots, and what is and back of a module. The 7 segment module has been stuck, and there will be a hot plate and the basically push it on those pins, and that struck through metal and the holes in the printer. This type of a cheap way in a expensive way in the fasting things into this. It works separately well, and this is a clock portion, and but it into the little bit about this interface button we have a pusher in this the trigger these pins, and you can will be the pin and connected to these title stuff out, because the stuff out are really things in the flexible and span flexible in the pin pressed in the top of a switch. When you press the button, the pin moves. You can switch and get the trigger, and when the one snows into the morning, you push it this and shift in the pin, and because this sleep button has been tucked in the house works. The kind of antivirus is in other way because of a hold and the punch different things in together and got in a pin, and it holds the fittirius in the copper coils around, which is a function as an antenna. There is an antenna for AM and FM radio. This signal comes from here in the got wire broken here. A signal comes from here and they goes to the things which has been set up for a 4 variable capacitor, and they helps to tune into frequency and don't want. When we turns in the dial, you can write at 101.1 FM or a 538 AMR, which has been stationed in the wants to help those variable and the filters unwanted frequency. These things are be indicated in the coil, and they can be used for an oscillator in a particular frequency. It is a coupled within a capacitor that can be useful in the programming of a radio function as well. As this guys right here is a radio chip. It is a IC chip, and that helps to demodulate and separate these music of a signals and you want from in the actual wave AM amplitude modulation and the means of a wave in the change into the heights. FM is a frequency modulator for that means of a wave in the change into its often occurs, and we can get a listen as a radio sound. This display chip basically decodes and says this is the original wave, and that is impressive signal that is able and the right here before it goes to the speaker and goes to the variable resistors here, which are also called the potential meter, where they turn into the change into the resistance of a circuit, either increase or decrease this volume, and the increase and decrease in around a volume tuning these wires, and actually you have a gone and the wires in the copper coil and magnetic. When a power turns into the copper coil and the magnetic, it causes a paper corner and the vibrating and the producing a pressure waves and the interrupting. This how to work. There is a right there was can and two different switches here, and we have to guard the switches in the control where AM and the FM, and other switches are just sort. And let's see a selected different function and alarm clock of a have a things, and you can also see this right here. This is a resistor, and that resistor electric current flow that can be useful because it helps preventing a two more powers flowing a certain component of a board, and that likes in this is a transistor These things are transistors in the function of a switch. These guys right here are a filter. There can be help to reduce the noise and electromagnetic interference, and there is a probably used into the radio circuit to help to clean up the signals. And on the back here is again in the probe connected to the battery. This is printed circuit board, and here on the back basically it has a layer and often be a board. Then a chemical was used. They use a basically photo motion process, which is like as similar to remove the shine and the all light on it, and they use the photo motion process remove in certain area of a copper keeps other areas. There will be an assistant of a material that authentic way areas in being protected. Those results in the copper trace. Those copper trace in basically very wounded and the little tiny wires that are very flat, and they allow us to connect all these different components in a very small space, very efficient. So we can just push it the component there, will call those holes component, those holes, and we solder them into the back, and they will be wired up together. We don't have worry about a lot of messy wires and things to being connected correctly. You can see this different components, small components on a back, a little surface mounted resistors and things like that. That are the alarm clock radio, and those are the inside. Hope you will be enjoyed it. Thank you for watching my video. Please keep subscribe me and also support to the technical engineering. Thank you.